Good morning, everyone. Here you will find my reading and thoughts about Chapter 13 of The Time Machine, The Trap of the White Sphinx. So here we go. Let's jump into it. About 8 or 9 in the morning, I came to the same seat of yellow metal from which I had viewed the world upon the evening of my arrival. I thought of my hasty conclusions upon the evening, and could not refrain from laughing bitterly at my confidence. Here was the same beautiful scene, the same abundant foliage, the same splendid palaces and magnificent ruins, the same silver river running between its fertile banks. The gay robes of the beautiful people moved hither and thither among the trees. Some were bathing in exactly the place where I had saved Weena, and that suddenly gave me a keen stab of pain. And like blots upon the landscape rose the cupolas above the ways to the underworld. I understood now what all the beauty of the overworld people covered. Very pleasant was their day, as pleasant as the day of the cattle in the field. Like the cattle, they knew of no enemies and provided against no needs, and their end was the same. I grieve to think how brief the dream of the human intellect had been. It had committed suicide. It had set itself steadfastly towards comfort and ease, a balanced society with security and permanency as its watchword. It had attained its hopes to come to this at last. One's life and property must have been reached almost absolute safety. The rich had been assured of his wealth and comfort, the toiler assured of his life and work. No doubt in that perfect world there had been no unemployed problem, some kind of question left unsolved, and a great quiet had followed. So I just want to pause right here. You can see the time traveler kind of reflecting on this society and just kind of being like sad and despondent. He calls the dream of the human intellect committed suicide. And now all it is this balanced society which is secure and permanent right there. And it is what it is. The rich was assured of wealth and comfort. The worker or toiler assured of life and work, and that's where they are, and that's where they're going to stay. Only now, the rich, the Eloi, are like cattle, and their life is fine until they're hunted at the end and stuff like that. And the toiler is just assured to live underground and do what he's been doing as the Morlocks. And there's no progress, there's no moving forward or anything. And it's just kind of, again, he's grieved to hear that. And so he's just kind of sad and despondent about the future. It's not this great intellectual masterpiece that he thought might have been. So let's keep moving. It is the law of nature we overlook, that intellectual versatility is the compensation for change, danger, and trouble. An animal perfectly in harmony with its environment is a perfect mechanism. Nature never appeals to intelligence until habit and instinct are useless. There is no intelligence where there is no change and no need of change. Only those animals partake of intelligence that have to meet a huge variety of needs and dangers. And I really, really like that line. It kind of stood out to me there because it's kind of a aha moment. He's discovering something and understanding something on a deeper basis. There is no intelligence where there is no need, where there is no change and no need of change. So the only way we get better, the only way we get more intelligent is if there's change, as if there is a need for change, of evolving past where we are now. And that's what he's saying is, in this world, there is no need for change. Everything is in perfect balance and in perfect harmony. So, as I see it, the upperworld man had drifted towards his feeble prettiness, and the underworld to mere mechanical industry. But that perfect state had lacked one thing even for mechanical perfection: absolute permanency. Apparently, as time went on, the feeding of the underworld, however it was affected, had become disjointed. Mother Necessity had been staved off for a few thousand years, come back again, and she began below. The underworld being in contact with machinery, which, however perfect, still needs some little thought outside habit, had probably retained perforce rather than initiative, if less of every other human character than the upper. And when other meat failed them, they turned to what old habit had hitherto forbidden. So I say, I saw it in my last view of the world of 802,701. It may be as wrong an explanation as mortal wit could invent. It is how the thing shaped itself to me, and as that, I give it to you. So just kind of summarizing, these are my thoughts. This is my hypothesis as I see it, that when meat failed, then you had the underworlders or the Morlocks, start to prey on the aboveworlders or the Eloi. And he says it might be wrong, my explanation, but that's how it appears to me. And so you got to be thinking like, maybe Wells, through the time traveler here, is talking to us about consequences of the future if we don't change things. Because we already start to see this kind of separation between the upper class and the lower class. Those who are rich and just kind of live nice and in comfort and stuff like that, and those who are working and toiling below. And he's probably doing some type of societal criticism here, saying, if we don't change something, this is how it might be, hundreds of thousands of years into the future. It's not right around the corner, so we can't see it, but it's how things might be. So let's continue this chapter. After the fatigues, excitements, and terrors of the past days, and in spite of my grief, this seat and the tranquil view and the warm sunlight were very pleasant. I was very tired and sleepy, and soon my theorizing passed into dozing. Catching myself at that, I took my own hint, and spreading myself out on the turf, I had a long and refreshing sleep. I awoke a little before sunsetting. I now felt safe against being caught napping by the Morlocks, and stretching myself, I came on down the hill towards the White Sphinx. I had a crowbar in one hand, and the other hand played with the matches in my pocket. And now came a most unexpected thing. As I approached the pedestal of the Sphinx, I found the bronze valves were open. They had slid down into grooves. And at that, I stopped short before them, hesitating to enter. Within was a small apartment, and on a raised place in the corner of this was the time machine. I had the small levers in my pocket, so here, after all my elaborate preparations for a siege of the White Sphinx, was a meek surrender. I threw my iron bar away, almost sorry not to use it. So just to kind of recap, all of a sudden the White Sphinx is open, that room has been open, and there's the time machine. And so it's like the Morlock said, well, here you go, time traveler, take your machine back. And so I hope you're thinking, I'm going to let you speculate, I won't answer, but why would they do this? They were in complete control. They had his machine. He was going to try and break in, but they actually kind of gave up. They do a meek surrender, to use his words, and they just give the machine back to him. So you got to be thinking, why would they do this, and what is the author's purpose of having the Morlocks do this? So let's finish this chapter. A sudden thought came into my head as I stooped towards the portal. For once, at least, I grasped the mental operations of the Morlocks. Suppressing a strong inclination to laugh, I stepped through the bronze frame and up to the time machine. I was surprised to find it had been carefully oiled and cleaned. I have suspected, since that the Morlocks had even partially taken it to pieces while trying in their dim way to grasp its purpose. Now, as I stood and examined it, finding a pleasure in the mere touch of the contrivance, the thing I had expected happened. The bronze panel suddenly slid up and struck the frame with a clang. I was in the dark, trapped. So the Morlocks thought. At that, I chuckled gleefully. I could already hear their murmuring laughter as they came towards me. Very calmly, I tried to strike the match. I had only to fix on the levers and depart then like a ghost. But I had overlooked one little thing. The matches were of that abominable kind that light only on the box. So again, why did they do this and stuff? to trap him so that they could get him. They knew that the time traveler would be attracted to his time machine, and so they lure him in, close the doors, and now they're about to spring upon him. He thinks about getting his matches, thinks about getting the fire started, but then realizes, oh crud, I can only light them on the box. So let's see how the chapter ends. You may imagine how all my calm vanished. The little brutes were close upon me. One touched me. I made a sweeping blow in the dark at them with the levers and began to scramble into the saddle of the machine. Then came one hand upon me and then another. Then I had simply to fight against their persistent fingers for my levers and at the same time feel for the studs over which these fitted. One, indeed, they almost got away from me. As it slipped from my hand, I had to butt in the dark with my head. I could hear the Morlock's skull ring to recover it. It was a nearer thing than the fight in the forest, I think, this last scramble. But at last the lever was fitted and pulled over. The clinging hand slipped from me. The darkness presently fell from my eyes. I found myself in the same gray light and tumult I had already described. So after this big fight and exchange with the Morlocks where they're kind of tearing at him and ripping at him, he struggles to get these little, levers in there, something like this. And he finally does, say after headbutting one actually, say we know that because it tells us, say, and then he, boom, plunges himself into time. We don't know. It doesn't say whether it's he's going forward or going backwards or anything. He's just trying to escape at this point. But he does escape, and we know this because he says, I found myself in the same gray light and tumult I had already described. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 13, a relatively short chapter. Hope you're enjoying the story, and we will pick it up there tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day, everybody, and please make sure that you are staying safe.